Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We'll be starting in 1 or 2 minutes. Just going to give a few minutes for some people to finish joining in, and then we'll get going. Thank you. All right, so I think we'll get started. Well, first off, thank you for everyone for joining today's webinar. This is the 8th webinar in the series of virtual events co-organized by Dell and Genetec. So today what we're going to be doing is having a look at the airports and urban mobility industries and how technology can enhance the operations of organizations that work in the space. So essentially to help them face the new challenges of a new reality. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce the presenters for this webinar session. So first, we've got William Chan, who is the Business Development Manager for Computer Vision and IoT Safety and Security at Dell Technologies. And he brings us a deep knowledge of the industry from an infrastructure perspective. We also have Cheryl Stewart, who's the Industry Marketing Analyst for Airports at Genetec, and has been working closely with airports in the last few months to understand the challenges that they face in the current changing conditions. Also with us is Brent Cary, who's the Business Development Manager for Transportation at Genetec, and he understands firsthand the needs of transportation industries as a whole. So he's joining us to provide a firsthand account of air travel under the new conditions. And my name is Jermaine Santoya. I'm the Industry Marketing Manager for Transit here at Genetec. And so what we're going to be doing today is going to be divided into 3 parts. Our session will first start with a look at the new landscapes that airports and urban mobility players have to face. Then we'll take a look at technologies available to industries in these spaces to help them meet operational requirements. And finally, we'll close with a look on incoming trends and what we can expect to change in these industries over the near future. So with this in mind, I'll pass it on to William, who will give us some insight into the current new landscape.
All right, thank you very much, Jermaine. So challenges in transportation reminds me of that 1987 movies, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where Steve Martin and John Candy are trying to get home from the Thanksgiving long weekend and encounter several obstacles. And speaking with our transportation customers, they would agree with the complexities in transportation. Operational costs and budgets are at the top of the list, but safety and security has always been a priority. Security has zero margins for error. Transportation is a highly regulated environment. There's not much autonomy in formulating security objectives and requirements. There's a long list of federal, state, and provincial authorities that set these. Authorities such as the FAA, CAA, ICAO, Transport Canada, MOT, TSA, just to name a few. Transportation has the challenge of moving extraordinary volumes of passengers efficiently, effectively, and safely. Next slide, Jermaine. In the new landscape, top priority is maintaining the health and safety of passengers and employees, reducing the spread of COVID and preventing contagion in transit. If you think crowds are a challenge to your business model, try not having any. That's the story of much of the global economy in the coronavirus era, but rarely so dramatic as in the case of air travel, as surreal photos of empty airport terminals are shown. While this pandemic is first and foremost a health issue, it's also a major economic one as well. Air travel hasn't ceased entirely, but it's collapsed to levels not seen since the 1950s. TSA screenings of passengers plummeted 96% in the early weeks of the pandemic. United Airlines CEO Oscar Munoz wrote in a company letter last month, "We expect to fly fewer people during the entire month of May than we did on a single day in May 2019. But at the same time, it's important to remember that while the crisis has put immediate growth ambitions on hold, we shouldn't accept it as being a one step forward, two step back scenario. Perhaps it poses a real opportunity for meaningful innovation and transformation to be accelerated." Next slide, please. To say the transportation industry requires a transformation is an understatement. A recent poll finds 70% of surveyed Londoners are anxious about commuting via bus or subway. The biggest challenge is to ensure passengers remain comfortable amidst fears of spreading COVID-19. By having access to information, observing social distancing, staff screening, and safety maintenance can reduce these fears and make travelers more comfortable. As transportation slowly resumes operations, new procedures will be implemented. Hygiene and safety is priority. Physical distancing measurements will be applied. It will be essential to stimulate demand and create incentive for passengers and gain their trust. As the demand for travel is restored, the end-to-end experience may have forever changed. It's likely these practices may become a longer-term feature in our lives. Next slide, please. What will transportation look like going forward? Will there be pre-screening, personal protective equipment, certain kinds of detection equipment? New policies will be applied for sure. Reorganization of space usage will be used for physical distancing. We are already seeing requirements for health checks prior to boarding flights. Trains and subways have face mask requirements. Prior to the COVID-19, Amanda Owens, Health and Safety Director at Heathrow, had already begun investing in a next generation security program. This program looks at how we can use technology to streamline the security search process, further reducing the need for person-to-person contact. This is more important now than ever, so that passengers can travel with confidence once we look to restart and restore travel. Next slide, please. The uncertain fate of commercial aviation is raising a number of related questions about travel as industries attempt to adjust to the global pandemic. The last significant shock to air travel, the September 11th hijacking of 2001, saw airports transform with a new infrastructure of security in order to restore a sense of safety. Coronavirus could bring similar changes and new concerns. Widespread transportation is a known cause of the pandemic. The initial response was to shut down or drastically reduce service. The gradual reopening will not mean business as usual. As operations resume, several pandemic-related measures will take effect. How will these practices be enforced? Passengers will find their travels looking totally different. Face mask and enhanced sanitization will be the norm. As transportation picks up, physical distance will soon be impossible. Transportation agencies will require data to provide a meaningful picture of the situation. Next slide. Flexibility and agility will be essential to adapting to the change. Future-proofing is the new urgent shift in transportation that the coronavirus brings. To be effective in adaptation, we first need to truly understand the issues. Data is crucial. When we understand the details, we can begin to solve the issues. Unification of this intelligence will provide insight for the industry to become more effective. We'll see new technologies adopted to address these matters. This is the new landscape now. I'll hand it over to Cheryl to talk about the value of technology in addressing these challenges.
Thanks, William. Thanks for sharing with us the needs and challenges that the transportation industry is facing right now. So in this section, the intention here is really to highlight some of the key technologies that can essentially help airports as well as transit agencies improve their overall operations, and to actually help them get back on track as smoothly and safely as possible. Now, there's multiple ways to improve the safety and operations in large facilities like airports and transit facilities, and I've actually broken them down into 4 main pillars. There's monitoring people, managing infrastructure, managing occupancy, as well as managing response. Now, Genetec specializes in providing video management and access control solutions, which satisfies the first 2 pillars mentioned, managing people and managing infrastructure. And with our video management system, we're able to track down owners of unattended baggage, for example, and in our access control solution, we're able to control and manage access of people in and out of secure zones, while also leveraging video footages from the VMS system, all within one unified platform. But today, I'd like to focus on the 2 remaining pillars for managing occupancy and managing responses to incidents. But before we go into that, we wanted to bring up a useful technology that we've seen gain quite a bit of attention across this period of time for a different purpose. I'll let Jermaine take over here to walk you through our solution for license plate recognition to manage flow in parking areas for your facility that can actually ultimately add to the overall passenger flow management in your facility. Go ahead, Jermaine.
Thank you, Cheryl. LPR technology really allows us to track vehicle occupancy in parking areas by adding LPR cameras to entry and exit points in a parking lot. We're really able to accurately keep track of occupancy as well as time of entry and time of exits for every vehicle. And when combined with payment and ticketing solutions from our technology partners, this really allows us to keep track of which car is entering at which time, as well as how much time they've actually paid for in terms of parking and how long they've remained past their allotted time when that happens. So for parking staff, LPR cameras can be used to enroll license plate numbers as credentials for staff members as well. So really what that allows you to do is that you're really able to provide a detailed vehicle occupancy level for every single area of parking that you have, whether it be a parking structure or whether it be a flat land parking. You're really able to control via license plate which cars are in your area. So next, I'll let Cheryl give you a look at how we track occupancy indoors.
Sure, thanks Jermaine for sharing with us the functions for license plate recognition. Now moving on to the next topic of conversation, Genetec, we offer a solution to manage occupancy in multiple different types of facilities, be it large or small. So this could be airports that manages over thousands of people at a time, or to small retail stores. So this package, it actually helps analyze the flow of people through dashboards and widgets, and they can be configured based on your specific need. Next slide, please, Jermaine. And so we're able to help transport facilities like airports and transit agencies. Number 1, count the number of people in a specific area. Number 2, we're able to measure and validate physical distancing rules that has been put in place. Number 3, we're able to display all the data on an interactive dashboard for better visualization. And lastly, we can help you set alerts and thresholds to start process changes and also safely guide your security operator in their resolution process with a collaborative decision-making tool called Mission Control that we'll go through later on in the presentation. Next slide. Now, to count the number of people in an area, we're able to do so by leveraging multiple different types of technologies. We could deploy a server-based analytics called Kiwi Vision, Genetec's in-house sensor that leverages deep learning for people counting. We're also able to leverage edge cameras that support people counting, such as Bosch IBA and the Axis occupancy counter. And also, depending on your need, application, and the accuracy you require, you can also leverage LiDAR for people counting and measuring physical distancing. And this specific type of technology is used when you need a very high accuracy number. So it provides a 98% accuracy. And the last one is that you can leverage connected mobile devices or any sort of subsystems that are able to provide information on movement at points of egress and ingress to count the people in and out of a specific area. Now, as mentioned previously, LiDAR sensors are a great and accurate tool to count people as well as measure social distancing. Now, there's two series of LiDAR sensors that we offer, the S series and M series from Quanergy. They're both having different functionalities. So here, you'll be able to see the S series, which is a purpose-built sensor that captures ins and outs or occupancy. And with our Genetec system, we're able to aggregate multiple different doors to attain the occupancy of an entire area. As for the M series LiDARs, these LiDARs are suitable both for indoor and outdoor usage. And what it does is that it's able to provide a 360-degree line of sight, giving you an accurate people counting capability as well as physical distancing measurement capabilities. What makes it ultimately different from the S series, as I spoke of before, is that it's able to provide XY coordinates of an object, and allowing our platform to leverage that information and geolocate objects on a map. So actually giving us the ability to calculate the distances between each object, therefore providing insights on physical distancing and occupancy. Now, all these insights and data attained from these different sensors are put into a dashboard that you can actually customize based on your needs to provide you with a better understanding and visibility of what's actually going on in your airport or your transit agency. You're able to create multiple different dashboards for different areas, for example, and you're also able to set thresholds or pre-thresholds to let you know when a situation is getting out of line. So for example, if it's starting to get too crowded in an area, you're able to set a two-step threshold that turns orange when it's about to reach the capacity limit and turn red, indicating to you that actions should be taken soon, therefore allowing you to anticipate the need for change. Our platform provides multiple different ways to visualize your data. First, you can do that through a live occupancy manager that gives you real-time number of people in an area, as you can see here with that widget. We can also provide occupancy alert messages. We're also able to dynamically showcase graphs of occupancy and physical distancing by the hour, for example, in a specific area. You can see here in the red, yellow, and green graph, it showcases the percentage of people at a specific time in an area that are abiding or not abiding to physical distancing measures, while also referencing to the occupancy in that area with the blue chart above, giving you the ability to make smarter decisions and also take corrective measures to validate things that you've already put in place in your facility. So you could make corrective measures such as opening a new counter, increasing cleaning in an area, or even add additional signage. And lastly, to take it a step further, we're also able to provide a detailed occupancy report to check back on history or incidents that might have actually happened in your facility, giving you more control over your operations. Now, with these visualization capabilities that I mentioned, you're also able to easily manage occupancy with the system because it allows you to generate event to actions when thresholds are being met. And this could be via a light trigger or a speaker. We're also able to push alerts to Genetec Mobile or via email for personnel who are on ground for them to take the necessary actions. And these alerts can also, I wanted to highlight, be displayed on video walls to provide not just your security operators information, but passengers as well, so that they can increase their health and safety awareness in the area. And now to go into a very interesting part of our session, incident detection and response. Now, we've seen it in places like airports investing in new technologies, such as thermal cameras, to better identify individuals with elevated body temperature, and to also showcase the airports or transit agencies' efforts in terms of creating a safe environment for travel as a result of COVID-19, right? But the problem arises here in terms of dealing with these specific passengers, as regulations are constantly changing, and being able to keep up to date with all of these procedures and manage these cases while still being compliant, it's actually very challenging. So what we've done here is that in Genetec, we were able to build a solution that actually guides your operator in a step-by-step resolution process according to a workflow that you can easily add, set, change, reset, or define based on these new rules that are compliant to your organization, as well as the outside regulatory bodies. So moving on, I'll let Jermaine jump in to take you through our collaborative decision-making tool, Mission Control.
Thank you for the overview of those occupancy solutions, Cheryl. So as mentioned, a lot of airports and transit agencies have been investing in these new technologies that provide them a lot of new data. But the question really quickly becomes, what do you do with all that data? How do you actionize it? And what actions does the staff take based on the data collected? And how do you standardize those reactions as well? So this is where Mission Control comes in to provide some guided support. What we're able to do is tap into all of the existing systems, bring in the data, and using a correlation engine, identify which incidents operators should be paying attention to, which incidents can be validated and confirmed, and then provide operators and people on the field with a set of standard operating procedures that they can follow to make sure that they follow the regulations that are currently in place. And these are all virtual standard operating procedures that can be modified over time as regulations and as rules and as the overall situation changes around the agencies. So what does this look like? So when we're talking about a standard operating procedure, we're really talking about the different steps that an operator or someone in your security staff will take whenever an incident is detected. And this incident can be of varying degrees. It can be something related to maintenance, or it can be something related to an emergency, like let's say a fire. Now, regardless of what type of incident it is, you are able to configure in the system what response step-by-step the operator should take. And in addition to this, you're also able to program within the system steps that the system itself should take automatically. So depending on the responses of the operator, there are different actions that you can automate in the system through a set of event actions to make sure that if an event does happen and a door needs to be opened, we're not relying on someone remembering to open the door, but the system will simply do it on its own. And so what does that look like when we're looking at thermal cameras? So this is a screenshot of thermal cameras currently in use in one of the airports that uses Genetec. Well, the workflow kind of looks like this. Once someone is detected as having an elevated temperature, there's a series of questions to ask and to log into the system. Now, what this does is this creates a specific log of different incidents where an elevated temperature was detected, and you've got a step-by-step list of what actions the person that was with this traveler took. And this really allows you to report into the effectiveness of your new technologies that you've implemented. And so having a look a little bit at the interface itself, when you're monitoring different incidents through Mission Control, you can really have a map overlay of your facilities and have a list of different incidents that are currently going on and that you're currently taking care of. Now, the different incidents are set at different priority levels simply based on how you define your priority levels in your installations. And the procedures are provided on the right-hand side, again, step-by-step with different questions and answers that the operators have to answer to validate what type of incident it is and different actions that they should take within the system. So until now, we've seen technologies that empower transit agencies and airports with data and decision support tools, but we also have to look at how technology can enable information sharing for both of these organizations internally and externally. So by their own nature, transport organizations work over large geographic areas with multiple installations and infrastructure spread out over large areas. Now, connecting these different facilities with a network cable is obviously not something that's possible in most cases. So this is where Security Center Federation comes in. And through federation, you're able to connect multiple security systems that are standalone within their own facilities to share information between these facilities. And not only are you able to share the information, but you're able to control what information is being shared, therefore really allowing you and giving you a granular control over what someone in another facility might see. The other platform that we want to talk about for information sharing is Genetec Clearance. Now, this is an evidence management system that helps congregate data and collect data that applies to a single event. And it's very useful to share data internally and collect the data in a very organized fashion, but it's much more useful whenever you need to share information externally. So instead of relying on burning a physical piece of media and handing that over, you can hand over evidence and collected data virtually through a secure manner, through a secure portal where you can validate and keep an audit log of who has accessed which pieces of information. Not only that, but internally, it really allows you to organize the different logs from every single event, whether it be video or sensor data. So having had a look at all of these technologies that can be helpful for the transportation industries, something that we really believe in is that growth requires flexibility. And to limit yourself to proprietary solutions is essentially to limit your growth. So Genetec really provides an open architecture, and Dell really helps us provide this open architecture with the infrastructure to offer not only solutions today, but a growth path and a flexible path to allow you to adapt to changing conditions and add systems as needed. So next, I'll pass it on to William to continue on with the future outlooks.
All right, thanks Cheryl, and thanks Jermaine for showing us how Genetec Security Center can offer transportation sensor management for passenger flow and analytics, and also how Genetec Mission Control provides that managed response capability. Transportation will rely on technologies, the thermal sensors, LiDAR, video facial recognition, LPR, AI, and analytics. The suite of products from Genetec and Dell will provide open, flexible, and agile solutions to meet the industry needs. Transportation has been showing a great commitment to realizing the potential of artificial intelligence with many use cases. AI will be prevalent with safety, customer service, passenger flow, automation, and operational procedures. The decade of the 2020s have been dubbed the decade of AI. We'll see automation and analytics play greater roles. And looking out even further ahead, technology has the pivotal role with autonomous travel, with initiatives to accelerate urban air mobility. Flying cars will become a reality. This again highlights the requirements for adaptable infrastructures. When we implement the correct technologies, everyone will benefit. As mentioned earlier, safety and security is the top priority. Commuters and passengers can travel at ease. Frontline workers and internal staff will have confidence with safe working environments. Government regulations and compliance needs will be met. Sharing data and collaboration will be vital among organizations and agencies. Customs, security, health sciences, health services, and urban planners will work closer with industry stakeholders. Wider collaboration benefits the industry rather than simply operating in silos. We hope that this will be a long-term trend that benefits the whole transport industry. Once the pandemic is overcome, transportation will be key to restarting the economy. This emphasizes the need to employ measures to protect the business during this time, as this will ensure the industry remains ready and able to play its part in economic recovery. Dell and Genetec can provide solutions to address the topics discussed today. Cheryl, can you talk to this next slide?
Sure. Thanks, William, for talking us through that. And we strongly believe in creating a long-term solution. And we essentially we really understand, I guess, that merely investing in a technology that only addresses issues related to current issues like COVID might not really be fully worth the money, right? So what if it's not relevant anymore? And what if the situation actually changes? Now, the technologies that we've highlighted just now provides different capabilities that function beyond the pandemic. The LiDAR system used for physical distancing can also be used to count people, measure occupancy, and it's also among the most accurate and reliable perimeter intrusion detection sensors in the market. So being able to have a solution that's able to serve multiple purposes is ideal in this case in terms of creating this long-term value. Lastly, ensuring longevity of your system requires a strong infrastructure. And so there really is no wrong time in this case to invest in it. So I'll pass it back to William to walk you through Genetec's collaboration with Dell in creating a reliable system with Streamvault.
All right, thanks, Cheryl. The Streamvault portfolio provides several advantages to deploying the solutions discussed today. Streamvault is a result of the partnership between Dell and Genetec, creating unified solutions with purpose-built appliances for all VMS needs. Streamvault enforces best practices to ensure a standardized level of protection and seamless interoperability. Benefits include streamlined deployments and maintenance, rapid configurations of networks and computer settings, and limited exposure. With Genetec's cybersecurity expertise and pre-configured and secured systems, also integrated Windows updates. It keeps your systems update with Genetec validated updates, security center and camera updates in a single tool. And the portfolio includes 5-year service agreements and keep your hard drives. Next slide, please. The Dell Technologies IoT solution for safety and security is an engineered solution. It's based on hyperconverged and storage platforms. These are purpose-built for video safety and security use cases. This solution offers automated installation and configuration of the Genetec VMS and the corresponding software and hardware without any specialized IT support. This reduces the deployment time from days to hours. This is a lab-validated solution for addressing business-critical security needs, targeting large-scale surveillance installation and scalable to petabytes of storage, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. Key capabilities include prescribed VxRail and Isilon configurations with best practice configuration guidance, and select either our all-flash P-series or our hybrid E-series VxRail and the Isilon A2000 series or ECS EX3000 series. Orchestration of virtual infrastructure deployments using Genetec VMS application installs provide easy and repeatability and short time to value. Next slide, please. Also, analytics will complement technology to achieve the objectives discussed. Dell offers the Metropolis Intelligent Video Analytics Platform. It's a collaborative solution with our hardware partners, NVIDIA and Intel, and our many ISV partners. Metropolis is based on our GPU server with capabilities to house 6 GPUs in a 2U format for validated analytic requirements from qualified AI software apps running on containers and managed with Kubernetes. As an analytics appliance, Metropolis is simple to deploy and can easily be added to existing systems. Next slide, please. Dell has a global network of labs for solution testing and validations. We have stringent validation testings to make sure our solutions deliver, and a network of global labs to highlight the reach and presence of Dell technologies. So what are the advantages of lab validated solutions? Dell performs extensive testing because customer environments vary. At least validating the solution's hardware and software performance within customer environments can be difficult and time-consuming. Our lab network is distributed around the globe with specialized labs exclusively for IoT and video validations. Dell Technologies labs are outfitted with technology from all major security vendors, with Genetec as a primary partner. This allows us to validate that our products are interoperable and flawless. The global lab network puts our resources within your reach, wherever you are. Dell also accomplishes benchmark testing results by using true production workloads that produces a system business continuity. We test multiple ISV products simultaneous with our fault-tolerant and high availability options. Next slide. To close off, we discussed a lot on how technology will play a role as the landscape changes. We should also make changes in how we collaborate. Security and IT departments will complement each other by working together more and more. We're seeing this become more common practice as security solutions evolve with technology. The security departments bring the knowledge and experience using the applications and security systems. IT brings the expertise with technology infrastructures. This is truly a case of better together. Next slide, Jermaine. Now, I'd like to introduce Brent Cary, Transportation BD Business Development Manager for Genetec. Brent will provide a firsthand experience with his international air travel as he was repatriated less than 12 hours ago after 38 hours of travel. But not to take away his thunder, I'll hand it over to you, Brent.
Thank you, William, for the introduction. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And thank you for joining this webinar. Yes, I am probably a unique case, somebody who was able to still travel, not only in the last 24 hours, but my journey actually started back in March when COVID started to really take over the world. And for those of you who know me, or for more importantly, for those of you who don't know me, I've been with Genetec for a number of years. I've recently moved from South Africa to Canada. And while we were busy moving in the last few months, COVID hit, and I found myself on one side of the world, my family on another side of the world, and decided that in March I needed to get back to Africa in order to be with my family, my wife and kids, before getting back to Canada, and was fortunate to get on one of the last flights that flew out of Montreal via Europe down to South Africa back on the 26th of March. And was then very fortunate to get out of South Africa, considering the border is still closed at the moment, on a repatriation flight on Sunday evening, South African time, and landing back in Montreal after about 38 hours door to door last night in Montreal time. So it has been an incredible experience. Someone who travels a lot, being in the industry that we're in, we love to travel. We enjoy the process, we enjoy the aviation, we enjoy the public transport side of it. And it was surreal. It was really a weird experience. It's something that I was thinking to myself, actually, sitting at Schiphol Airport yesterday. And when somebody walked past me, they actually said the exact words, weird. It's just a very strange time. It's something that's never been seen before. When I first boarded the plane in March from Montreal Airport to go to Amsterdam and back to South Africa, it's the first time I've been able to look at the departures board and actually focus and actually identify my flight within 2 seconds, because there were only 7 flights on the board at 5 p.m., which is normally one of the busiest times at YUL Airport. Landing at the terminals and seeing almost complete destitute facilities where stores are closed. The stores that are open are really at a distance, if that makes sense. It's been a crazy experience. There's still a lot that I'm processing from the last 38 hours or so, and still trying to comprehend, but it was incredibly different and incredibly challenging. This is something that we've looked at for a number of months now. It's been with us since the end of last year already. And the way out of it is still unclear. I think what makes it easier from my perspective is to know that there is technology that can help with these institutions and help these facilities become sort of compliant. There's a couple of things that I have picked up, though, as I said, in the last few months, from going almost at the start of the pandemic to now, where we see the easing of movement and getting towards the end of, let's say, a lot of the lockdown periods. There's definitely been a change that I've noticed. I have seen, obviously, face masks being now a requirement on the airlines. Every flight that we boarded, you were not allowed to board without wearing a mask to cover your nose and mouth, which makes sense. But then I've also noted the big differences in the different regions. And where we were talking earlier, Jermaine was mentioning about different interagency communication. And if we look at Europe versus Africa versus North America in this instance, and in my experience, each one of them had different rules or different guidelines. Even though they were sort of similar, they were not all the same. So there's definitely a disparity between interagencies at the moment. I know a lot of them were trying to ramp up as quickly as possible, and you do what's best for your country and you do what's best for your borders at the time. As they're opening, we're seeing the same thing. Certain countries are requiring in an airport terminal to wear the mask as well as on the flight. Other terminals, you don't need to have the mask on if you're not directly engaging with a person. But one thing that is clear is it's a difficult experience. It's not easy. This is not going away for some time. This is still going to be a challenge when you do your travel. For those of you, again, like me, who enjoy the travel experience, it's not what you remember. It's hard to describe to someone who hasn't done it yet, but when you do start flying again, or for those of you who have been flying again, you may agree or you may disagree. I think we all have our own personal preferences of what we think is a good experience as well. But there's definitely a challenge for the public transport sector, not only from airlines. We were on trains, we were on buses, going through this whole process. It's clear that social distancing is difficult. It's clear that it's not going away. It's also clear, though, that people still need to move. So as much as we can try and put these policies in place to keep people away from each other and to avoid touch points and to try and curb the spread, obviously, as a lot of countries have done incredibly well in the last few months, it is not a simple process. Like I said, the one thing that makes it easier from our perspective in this technology space is we have seen a big drive from companies like Genetec, from Dell, from our analytics partners who have come on board in a very short amount of time to add features to their product sets or to add new product sets completely to help with this challenge and to help more from an operations perspective as opposed to a security perspective. You know, 9/11, I was living in the United States at the time. It was an incredibly massive change in the aviation industry, which is still sitting with us today. The security checkpoints that we have today are still due to 2001. Will COVID's presence, or will the technology that's being implemented in COVID still be around in another 18 or 19 years? Not likely. But there's a good question to say then, well, anything that we are implementing today for COVID to try and obviously curb again the spread, to try and keep people at a distance, is it something that we can still utilize, or technology that we're not just going to be wasting money on? A lot of airports we've seen around the world, for example, have started to put in thermal camera technology to try and pick up high fever detection, which is a workaround. It's not an exact science. It's not something that is plug and play and will work off the bat. It's also not something that you may want to keep in place. On the flip side, it is possibly something that you might want to keep in place in certain regions. So this is definitely going to be something that we look at from a global perspective very differently. Again, the regions around the world will all treat what they're doing today in a manner that fits them best. What we can tell you from Genetec and Dell perspective is something that we've got and something that we've seen being implemented in a lot of our airport customers, in a lot of our public transit customers, from train stations to road networks, is what we are discussing and the technology we are showing and we are helping implement is future-proof. It is not let's call it a band-aid on a wound that's going to be utilized today and then not utilized in 3 or 4 months' time. This is something that we could implement today and will be repurposed or reused over and over again. The technology that our developers are pushing out at the moment is, again, it's not short-term technology. This is stuff that will help in the short term, absolutely yes. This is something that we need today and tomorrow and probably for the next 3 to 4 to 5 months, even longer. But it will also be technology that will be capable of being used for the next 3 to 4 to 5 years, if not longer than that. So it is not short-term gains that we're looking for. We're in for the long run from what we're doing in the development world. And yeah, I've rambled on a lot now. I've got a lot of jet lag in me, so please excuse me. But if there are any questions, which I see we have a few coming through, we'll get to those and we'll answer them. But that's pretty much my tale and my story.
Thanks, Brent. Thanks for sharing your experience. It's scary and definitely interesting as well. I really look forward to actually see it for myself on what's the situation in the airports right now. Jermaine, do you want to jump to the last slide and let me close off before we move into Q&A?
Sure, of course.
Before we close off, let me just say that Dell has really been a trusted partner that we've had for many years. They're really reliable and they have the reputation to back it up. As William mentioned just now, they are the #1 vendor for safety and security infrastructure servers, storage, and HCI. They have an open architecture and their flexibility with business connections across the world has opened up multitude of opportunities for Genetec. It really is a great partnership between us both as we complement each other in our strength in providing innovative, flexible, yet reliable technology solutions. So with that said, I'll open the floor for Q&A.
Michelle, I already have a few questions that I can field you. So we had a question earlier when we were talking about the operations and the mission control specifically. The question was, do we need mission control to do all of the tasks that we were highlighting? And I'll answer that one if it's okay. The mission control plugin on Genetec is not 100% required for every single task that we mentioned today. So that's a bit of a vague answer. So let me get more specific. So within Genetec, we have a number of features, one of them being something like an event to action, where when a trigger goes off, we can have an automated response within the database and within the system to allow you to very, very simply, very, very quickly and efficiently respond to any type of alert or alarm. Where mission control comes in is more from a specific or simplification of an incident trigger. So what triggered the incident? Most incidents are triggered by 1 or 2 alarms, which can specifically in public transport be a big problem. I mentioned Schiphol having flown through there this time around and in March. One of our customers that implemented mission control, they used it because of its simplification of their number of alarms that they had. So an alarm doesn't necessarily have to just be a door forced open, or a motion on a camera, or a fire alarm. It could be all 3 of those together within a specific time period. Now you need mission control in order to simplify that trigger. And what that allows you to do also from a response perspective is then step in the standard operating procedures for the operators and have the step-by-step guide as to what that operator and that response team need to be doing. And not only that, how well and how efficiently and quick are they doing it and responding. We have full auditability and reporting within mission control, which is second to none. That's essentially where the mission control would be required for a lot of the tasks versus, say, event to action. I think to simplify the question, those who are interested in Genetec who don't know what mission control is or security center is versus those who do, the best answer that I can give you is get in touch with your local RSM or your local pre-sales engineer, and they'll be able to give you a lot more details on the difference between mission control and the standard features within Genetec Security Center. There's another question here. William, I'm going to push this one to you with regards to infrastructure. So we're seeing a lot of facilities that are having to implement things like video analytics, which is a very process-heavy application, and having to invest in new servers and obviously spend a lot of money within data centers and on their infrastructure to be able to run these analytics on these cameras. After COVID subsides, William, or there's no more need for the social distancing analytics, for example, there's a good question here about how can we repurpose these machines? What would Dell or Genetec recommend us to do with these servers that we've now invested in and may not be utilizing?
That's a good question. So analytics is actually giving additional capabilities to our system. And the nice thing about analytics is that it's multi-purpose. There are so many different use cases you can use. So if you're using analytics now for physical distancing or face mask detection or thermal monitoring, when the situation changes, you can actually repurpose those without really doing anything to the hardware, because it's really the software and our partners like Genetec and Kiwi Vision and our ISV partners that add the additional functionalities to the hardware. Our platform is extremely flexible. It operates on containers and Kubernetes. So as you want to add different features, you can spin up different containers that can provide license plate recognition, facial recognition. So many different use cases. It's really multi-purpose. So it's an investment that you will just keep on giving you a return on that investment. So the flexibility are endless, and just continue using that hardware with different software applications to give you those different features. Right?
Yeah, brilliant. That's pretty much my feeling as well. As I mentioned, it's not about short-term gains, it's about the long run. How do we make sure that whatever we're supplying today is still going to be future-proofed? And Dell Technologies, of course, is always going to be able to offer that. The Genetec platform clearly manages that. There's another interesting question on analytics. Jermaine, I'll probably bump this to you. So the question is, can people counting analytics merge different counting technologies? For example, can we aggregate LiDAR and video analytics to get a complete count of a facility?
So
I think.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Go ahead, Jermaine, if you wanted to, I can add to the answer.
Well, what I was going to say is for occupancy to really work, what you need to ensure is that every single point of ingress and egress is covered. That is the main concern. However, when you're using LiDAR, it's a little bit different. What LiDAR really does is give you occupancy based on how many people are within a specific area. So you don't really need to be as concerned as to the entry and exit points, but really more as to the area that the LiDAR sensor is covering and how much coverage that LiDAR sensor is giving you. Because based on how much coverage you have within that zone, that's the zone where you'll be able to track the movement of people. And Cheryl, I don't know if you had anything to add.
Yeah, I think you hit it right in the head. So the answer, like you said, it's yes. We're able to merge different counting technologies for different entry and exit points, but essentially we're able to aggregate these numbers to give you like an accurate cumulative amount of the different people counting technologies mentioned in the presentation before. We'll be sending the presentation later on if you wanted to have a look back. And to calculate the total number of people in that specific zone. So yes, the short answer is yes.
Excellent. And then final question, we're almost at our time. And this relates to the federation versus the clearance pitch that we had on that slide. Again, maybe Jermaine or Cheryl, feel free to answer. So we've got a question about the difference between federation and clearance. The understanding, and sorry, it's just it's asked in a strange manner. The understanding is, what is the key difference between federation and clearance, and is there a way to share number of incidents or number of cases or specific events between different agencies that are not utilizing Genetec on any of those different technologies from Genetec?
So when looking at clearance versus federation, the main piece of difference is who you're sharing data with and which entities are sharing data. So federation really enables the communication between two security center systems provided by Genetec that would otherwise not be able to communicate due to distance. So that's done via secure connection through the internet to share data from one system to another. So typically, this is mostly done within the same agency or within the same systems that one customer will own. So if you think of a public transit agency, they might have a security center system at every single subway station and connect them all to a central monitoring control center that also has security center. So all of those connections are done through federation. What clearance allows you to do is not so much share data within the different systems, but rather collect the relevant information to a single incident or a single event, and through a cloud platform concentrated, and then you can share it internally, or you can share it externally with other stakeholders. So for airports, an example is if there's an incident where the police needed to be called in because there was someone that was acting in a violent manner. Well, now you've got multiple camera angles coming in from the different security systems that you have. You can bring all those into clearance, package it in one single location, and provide a link to the police to access that video securely. And so that would be the main difference, is really how you're sharing the data from one to another. And something I'd like to add to clearance as well is that for any type of incident, you can actually open it up to the public. So if there is something where you believe that someone might have recorded something of interest on their cell phone because you maybe had a malfunctioning camera or an angle that didn't give you a good view of the incident, you can open it up to the public and provide a link to them to upload their video to the clearance platform. And so again, it enables that back and forth sharing between you as a closed agency that want to make sure that your data is protected, and the external world that might want to view some of pieces of data. And on both platforms, what you share is very controlled. It's not an open door policy. It's really much more of a controlled drip, where you're the one that controls which pieces of your system you want to allow access to.
Fantastic. So we're pretty much up at the end of our time. It's 1 or 2 minutes to go. So thank you all for your input, and I'll let you close off.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for having attended today. We appreciate very much your time. If you've got any questions for us, you've got our emails on screen right now, but feel free to reach out to us if you have any more questions. And if there's any questions that we haven't gotten to, we'll message you privately. So once again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for attending this 8th webinar session co-organized by Dell and Genetec, and have a nice day.